Welcome back, everybody, to this week's podcast. What's your view on leadership? How has leadership changed your life? You know, I really want to agree with John Maxwell on everything rises and falls on leadership. And just this week alone, as a business, we've been involved with a startup business. Very excited about that business. But as a business, we've been facing some real big challenges over the last 7 days. But you know what? During these very challenging times in our lives on building businesses and, also serving other businesses, you're faced with challenges. And I want to agree with John Maxwell when he says that everything rises and falls with leadership. It's really when we understand that leadership starts with us, it starts with me, and it has a ripple effect with our families, with our closest friends, people that are important in our lives. So this week again, we're going to take a few highlights of discussions on leadership we've had the past year. And I'm so excited about listening to this again and taking these snippets, these gems that people have learned and that they've applied in their own lives. And I'm sure you're going to have so much fun and growth from listening to this recap for this week again. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. And I do want to ask you a big favor. If this Money Coach podcast means something to you, if it changes your thinking, if it helps you become a better version of yourself, why don't you share it with family, friends, colleagues, so that they can also benefit from what we are sharing and what we are learning and this journey of becoming a better version of ourselves and helping a younger version of ourselves. Thanks for listening this week. Enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. In your view, is a leader born or can they be developed? How does one go about developing yourself if you think that you can be developed as a leader?
Yeah. No, I don't think you're born a natural leader. No, definitely not. Leaders can be trained, made, and developed. In fact, that's how it happens. Saying that, obviously, to be a leader or to be successful, some things do help you. If you have physically, you robust, fit, and healthy, if you have a good mind, if you're fairly intelligent, those all help you. If you've had a good upbringing and you can speak well, those help you. So they all help you. However, Christo, I must tell you a secret. When I was in school, like I say, I was thrusting to some of these things and it just happened. But when I was in school, I was very introverted. I was really introverted. I actually stuttered. And I still have to manage it quite well. So I was really not leadership material. I was definitely not leadership material. And then as you get thrust into these different environments, and yes, it started as an onset where I had 4 or 5 shaft helpers of a different race, all older than me. And now we used to have these competitions to how many cars I can get underground or how many cars I can get out. And this was exciting working with these guys. For me, it was like a sport, a hobby. I didn't see it as work. And they didn't either then. We worked together and it was like, and then someone said, but you're like our most successful. You're like really a good onset. I said, oh, no, I don't know doing anything. These guys are doing it. And just working with them and how I turned work into a great activity, a social experience for us. And we were successful and it was happy and healthy. And so that carries on. So, no. And then I went out of my way. I must say, first of all, that person you spoke to, you must give credit to those people that have helped and still do help. And, their footprints all over. His Donnie Spies was one of them. And he was actually the general manager in Mauritius Sinking, while I was the mine manager doing the sinking. And I learned a great amount from him. But then another influence in my life has been Ian Haynes, who was a human resource source manager in Anglo Gold Ashanti at that time. And I think he did leave as general manager and stuff like that. But he actually one time said, I wanted to join an organization outside the business. And And she said, Mark, you need to mature a little bit before you can join. It was the round table at that time. I said, before you can join this round table, because I was young and it was a great place to get to know people, and especially of the opposite gender and all of that, and enjoy life. And he said, no, you mustn't go there. You must go and become a leader in different organizations. And he mentioned like the Parent Teachers Association. And I wasn't even married then. So, I mean, what's he talking about? And then you must start your own organizations. And he said, because then you will be sitting around the table with a housewife or a mother, and you think you got your manager's ticket and you can have this intelligence that you, now through your intelligence, your positional power, this is the decision the school must make or something. And this person who doesn't have that management skill, the financial skill you have, or whatever other skill you are purporting to be superior in, and this person is challenging you, and you have to convince this person to be on your side and walk this journey together. And it actually got me quite seriously thinking, but yes, that is how you're going to make the leadership. And then, fortunate, I have been in the positional power most of my life, but you have that reference that you can use the positional power from time to time, but you have to somehow form the foundation that people will follow you, even if you're the subordinate or you're the equal or in a completely different environment. And I actually then, like you say, developed. Then I put in a plan together, not a career plan, a plan how I can better myself. And I became chairman of the Welcome Hiking Club. That was before the SIMM had this youth thing. So we started the Mining Engineers Forum in Welcome, where I got all the young mining engineers together. Obviously, they elected chairman, and I just happened to be elected as chairman. And you and I know, when we were studying together, when we said, chairman of the Housecom and all of that, and all these things were stringing together. And I mean, I've been chairman of my estate that I live in, and playing leadership role. I'm currently on the council of the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy as well, in all of these areas. And some of it was just getting out there and practicing. And so that's in how you work in these areas of leadership and force yourself in there. And other areas are just, so go out and stand in front of 3,000 people and speak to them. So when we have these prize givings for 1 million fatality-free shifts, or 2 million, or 5 million, or 10 million fatality-free shifts, as nervous as it may seem, I'd go out in front of those 5,000 people and take that microphone and start engaging and speaking. And yes, it's not because I must. This is exciting. It's like bungee jumping. I don't want to do it. There's something in you that makes you scared. I get scared every time I present or speak, nervous, scared. But I do it because I know you're going to actually become more robust. So there you see you're testing, you're developing your leadership skills. I believe leadership skills, you have to base them on basic skills. I mean, that's arithmetic, especially mining. People think, no, we can, we blast over here, we do that. No. You've got to be, when you do a business review, you have to be quickly be able to add up the numbers, check the numbers, see where the mistake is, see the problem is. And still today, I remember doing the Kumon, the Kumon that the kids used to do for basic mental arithmetic.
Yes.
I used to do that with the children just to enhance those basic, addition, multiplication. And still today, when I look at a business review template, your square meters, tons, ounces. Now here's a problem. Yeah, what was your stoping width? What did you change the rock density, or what is the stoping? Why is that not the same as what it was? And you find other people look at you and say, wow, how did he just do that calculation? So it's not a complex calculation, but make no mistake, that's not natural. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And then I use work very loosely because actually you can see that I position this as a sort of self-improvement game for myself. Yeah. Instead of doing crosswords, this is what you're actually doing just to, let's say, sharpen the sword, sharpen the axe, if you like. That's what we're doing. And you see that's fun, so you actually enjoy it. And then it does position you better for all these other areas. So definitely, I think every young up-and-coming leader out there needs to identify the key elements. What are their core skills? You need to be a good miner. You need to be able to, mining layouts or grades or tons or ore reserve management. You need to know it. You can't be 10th best in it. You need to have that skill. You need to have basic arithmetic, logic, problem-solving skills. You can develop them. You get programs, you develop them. Basic speaking skills. I mean, I grew up in Welcome. Do you think Welcome creates good English speakers? I mean, no. You actually have to work on it. So you have to work on these different things. And then simple things that I know very close to your heart is your physical health as well. If you're working late at night at 9 o'clock, it is the fittest does survive. If you are fitter and stronger, you can work late on your budgets, late into the night and get up early and still be fairly robust.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not physically taking care of yourself, that's going to be a challenge for you. You know, walking underground, you've known that, walking underground, climbing up a rise and then being able to think afterwards can be a challenge sometimes. So you do need to be aware of the whole package. And that's just the front end. On the back end, spiritually, emotionally, your values need to be intact. You need to be aware that these can become unhitched, especially in today's society, when there are a lot of challenges and pushing in gray areas in our society. You need to have your value system and your support system very well connected and hitched in a firm foundation. So you can actually tackle it like an engineer would. Write these down, do it, set targets for yourself, and go about developing them, as you would any project or any program, because these are all projects and you are the project. And your body and your mind is the vehicle by which you deliver this leadership. So you need to develop it. So I definitely believe you grow it, you develop it, you refine it, and you learn from your failures. And if you're not failing, well, you're not pushing it that hard then. You keep at it.
So we're not just talking about that the graduates out there. We're talking about any person, even at operator level, at supervisory level, that don't have that first, that tertiary qualification. What you are saying, what I'm hearing you saying, there's an opportunity for you. Prepare yourself and just develop, learn new skills.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Christo, in my previous life, what I've always driven is exactly what you've highlighted. I've had metallurgists that have gone into procurement and done very well and actually loved it because they could then bring that understanding into the procurement space, as you highlighted. So for sure, I mean, at the operator level, in fact, those conversations continue to happen. You would know in the industry that there is this question of multi-skilling and financial reward expectations. And in fact, I had these conversations recently, just a week ago, where I was talking to artisans and mining operators and telling them to say, when you are an electrician and you are an electrician in a particular workshop, you as an individual cannot restrict yourself to a particular machine, because the future of work would be one individual working on multiple machines. So to be able to be ready for that future, you can have exposure, because in a mine setup, we do have several workshops, whether it's shovels, trucks, etc., etc. That opportunity exists where you can do that. You can do self-learning. You can study if you want to improve that kind of skills. But of course, the conversation was brought about because when I did initially have the conversation, there was a question from the individuals to say, but you see, the company expects us to do more than what we're employed for at zero reward or recognition. And my argument was, that's where the problem starts, is that your expectations are purely centered around remuneration, but you are not recognizing the fact that the future, that remuneration will be based on the skills that you have. And the skills that you have right now will be relevant at that particular point in time. So I would suggest you work on the skills and be ready for that relevance when the time comes.
Yeah. And the people listening to this podcast, they are the ones that realize, look, I cannot expect the company to always be the one that educates me. There's a responsibility on my shoulders to go out and prepare myself and grow my own career. This is up to me as well. I've got a decision, and I can't expect the company to do that. And these are the type of people that are listening to this and are inspired by exactly what you are now saying to them to do.
Exactly.
technology failures or successes that you've been quite vulnerable today, but that you are willing to share? And what was the learnings from that, or, you know, the recipes to success from those success stories on the technology front?
I think I'll start with the success because usually that's easier. So definitely the one success that I can highlight, you know, was our geotechnical technology program that we implemented that allowed us to, you know, stretch mining activities for at least 2 years under very difficult circumstances. We had 400 lives that we had to look after through technology. That is just a fact. So we mined, you know, after the first failure that we had in one of these open pits that I managed, we managed to work that open pit for at least 2 years, purely through the assistance of technology. And we managed to get buy-in from the employees as well. And we were very transparent, and they understood how those technological systems could assist us to put them, not necessarily in the line of danger, but in a very risky area, but be confident that when something does happen, we will be able to, first and foremost, see it up front and then make the right decisions. So that was one of the successes that I can say, you know, that investment was actually worth it. I think a failure that I can point out was we you know, to streamline HR systems, you know, around attendance, time and attendance. I think everyone in the industry knows that at the moment, most companies, it's very rare that you'll find companies where, you know, your attendance affects payroll activity directly. You know, attendance is typically separate, and then payroll is separate. And we were attempting to basically bring the two together. So when you clock in biometrically or whatever, then, you know, the payroll system will register and it will basically do a timesheet. And the remuneration is based on that actual timesheet, which is basically based, linked to your biometrics. So we attempted that, and unfortunately, I think we failed to implement it. And the reason why we failed to implement it is that we had not anticipated the quantum of interfaces that we had to look at. We were just looking at the pure technology standalone. We had not appreciated all the other nuances around, sort of leave, the different types of leaves, and what if a person clocks and the biometric hasn't worked? There was a lot of things, and we had to go back to the drawing board, and we actually decided to say, look, I think this technology project, we probably had not sat down and thought about it thoroughly, and therefore let's close it before we create social upheaval and, of course, financial drain, because it's not going anywhere. So that was one of my failures. But of course, at the moment where I work at the moment, we are busy implementing a similar system, and that experience from my failure is actually something that I'm pouring into the business, so for purposes of learning, so we don't make the same mistake.
Failing forward.
Yeah, that's it. That's
learning.
It. Look,
learning
I've always said, I think there's a cliche that says adversity introduces a man to himself. It's not so much, the question of the quantum of the failure, it's how you handle the failure. So from my perspective, I've only succeeded because I've failed more than the next person. They see the successes, but I've failed much more. And that's why I said, even the question of being first, I take the responsibility, but I'm also very cognizant that it's not a destination.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning of work, and you have a responsibility to do unto others the same that was done to you. So, yeah.
A journey of discovery and learning.
Do you need some one-on-one coaching? Do you know that theminingcoach.com offer these services as part of Kumena Consulting? Kumena means grow, and most top athletes and sport teams all have coaches to grow and become better. Why don't you reach out to us by sending us an email, and you will qualify for getting your first coaching session absolutely free. Contact us at Christo@theminingcoach.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Where did this whole leadership, apart from this one guy at Buffels that started to tell you, look, you earn their respect, where did this leadership thing start for you?
as I said, I think there's a certain amount of inherent born leadership. If you're born with a certain talent. But
Yeah.
I don't want to limit there and say that people can only have leadership capability if you're born with, because it's not true.
Yeah.
You can grow your leadership capability, and you can be born with a certain amount of ability, and then you don't grow that any further. So there's also that component, is that it's something that you're continually going to work on. And it's almost like exercise your body and exercising your brain. If you don't exercise your leadership, you actually become a little bit not bad. You're not as well you're not leadership fit. So
Yeah.
leadership fitness is also an important portion. You got to remain leadership fit.
Yeah.
So for me, I was at primary school, I was a leader. So I was head boy at primary school, which then gave me leadership capabilities. At high school, I was also leadership roles. When I went to what we in those days, we had a thing called Felt School. Out of 3 schools, I was selected as the A1 leader of all the, I don't know why, like, wow, okay. I don't know where you saw this in the last week, but anyway, okay, that's fine. I did 2 years in the military, compulsory national service. I had to choose between jail and going to the army, so I chose going to the army because it was better than not seeing your girlfriend for 6 years. So off I went to the military. I was a leader in the military. So I led a military area. As a national serviceman, I was doing a permanent force guy's job, where they actually appointed me into that leadership role and looked after the camp. So it was like, okay, so there I was fortunate to be in that situation again. And then you'll end up in your mining career, and I guess it's the love for people,
Yeah.
and understanding people. I think you're probably the one place where you learn, and you sort of you have to have a heart for people to start with. So, and now you're making me think, as I'm actually sitting here and I'm thinking back now to so where did some of this come from?
Yeah.
I would have to ascribe some of it to my grandfather, who's my namesake. So when my father passed away, I was 7 years old, and my grandfather stepped in as a father role, and I would spend time with him.
Yeah.
We would go out to his farm. So his farm was just on the northern side of Cullinan Diamond Mine, and we would spend time with him. And he was a teacher. He was actually the headmaster of the primary school out in Cullinan Diamond Mine, and he had a lot of leadership capability in that village. I used to go with him, and we'd sort of see, and he'd spend time with him. I think he imparted a lot of stuff to us.
Okay.
So I haven't thought about that before. You actually just sparked a thought, and I recall now. Okay, so granddad was actually grandfather, Opa Tom, as we knew him.
Okay.
Was actually quite an inspirational guy, and he actually had quite a lot to do in our lives. So probably he's got something to do with it, somewhere inside that process. But then you build on it,
Yeah.
because you could do nothing, you could do nothing thereafter.
Yeah.
I went to, when I went to Ramsden Estates, JCI had a tough culture. It wasn't an easy culture. If I compared to Gencore was more family orientated and smaller shafts, and they were sort of like you felt part of a team, part of a family. JCI, I remember being out on this mine, and there were 100 shift supervisors in the changehouse, 17 mine captains. It was a massive mine, in terms of people size, a lot of people. But you again, you earn respect in what you do. So in my time that I was with them, what I always found was, and I take that learning back again from a book where Napoleon and I often use this example, but Napoleon and Wellington, and what made the difference between Napoleon and Wellington. And if you've heard the story before, forgive me, but I'll tell it quickly, is Wellington had 3 things that he did that made a difference in his leadership capabilities. So most people don't know where the name Wellingtons come from, gumboots. Wellingtons comes from General Wellington, because he went and spoke to the army troops in the trenches, and he said to them, so what are you battling with? And they said, we've got foot rot, our stomachs aren't working, so we've got diarrhea. We're standing on our own feces here with foot rot, trying to fight the war. And what Wellington then did was he created the Wellington gumboot to fix their feet and to fix the foot rot. And what he then did was he went to the kitchen and he went and fixed the food, because the army runs on its stomach.
Yeah.
So in that capability, he then had fixed to their physical problems. But then what he did was he climbed on a horse, and where the lines were breaking, where the morale was weak, he, the general, would go and sit behind them and rally the troops with the lines. So he'd go to the weak places in the business and rally the troops. Wellington was very different to Napoleon, because Napoleon was sitting at the back with a wig on, drinking his tea. And when things got too tough, he just, sip his tea and said, sorry, and climb on his horse and off you go. He wouldn't go into the battlefield.
Yeah.
But when you listen to that story, and I'm using that as an equivalent to what I learned in my process, was, so mining the UG2 at a Amandelbult.
Yeah.
The guys are saying, oh, we're battling to do this work.
Yeah.
It's like, let me go underground. Let me go and understand what you're battling with. You take a shovel and you actually go and stand in the crosscut with the shovel, and you load the hoppers. You load the mud with the guys in the crosscut. Firstly, they look at you and they say, at that stage, I was mine captain section manager, and they say, Numzan, you're not supposed to be here. That's like saying, boss, you're not supposed to be here. This is our job. Okay?
Yeah.
But I want to understand why you guys are battling, because I want to see what the problem is. And very simplistically, what I did then was I looked at the shovels and I said, but you're using a standard size shovel, but the UG2 mud is 25% heavier than standard mud. So the UG2 has got a lot of chrome in it, and therefore it makes it exceptionally heavy. And when you stick the shovel into the mud, you can't actually lift it, because it gets glued in, and then it's too heavy and you can't get it up and you can't throw it over the hopper.
Yeah.
So we made smaller shovels.
Yeah.
And we actually designed smaller shovels for the people.
Yeah.
Because we realized that they could not lift these heavy shovels, and they actually weren't bad people. They just couldn't actually do the job. So that's an example of where, and there's multiple of those types of examples where you sort of go, let me go understand how and why people are battling.
Yes.
And seek first to understand, and then be understood.
Yes.
So that's that whole, Covey's model.
Yeah.
And that's an implication of that. I mean, we went to, I'm just going to use the UG2 as an example again. We went and had a look at the scrapers that we're using, and the scrapers were too big, the windstrokes were too small, and then you start understanding what the guys are battling with, and you fix it.
Yeah.
And they actually come to you and they say, thank you for helping us.
Yes.
Now, what people are normally used to in the industry, and that's the difficult industry that I sort of grew up in, is that you'd rather be hard on the people than understand what they're actually battling. Yeah. So for me, it was about going in and understanding what they're battling with, rather than being hard on them. So, I mean, I remember as a shift supervisor, oh my goodness, we used to have a mine overseer. So let me not go to names, but so this guy used to arrive at work, and when he arrived at work, we all used to run out of the office because no one wanted to be in the office. But how do you lead people if you can't speak to them, if you can't influence them?
Yes.
So it doesn't help that there's this absolute fear for the leader, because then the leader has got no ability to influence. So if you arrive in a place, wherever you are, or you're supposed to be talking to people and the people run away, well, you don't influence anybody. So you've got to be able to talk to people to be able to influence them. So that was the key issue, is to get that, being able to talk.
Yeah.
I mean, on Randfontein, as an example, we would go, and I mean, the shaft was battling to make a certain amount of their call. Go and spend time underground on afternoon shift, understanding what it is. And it was clear there was a problem with the locomotives, where they were tramming through the wrong haulages. And we changed it, and the tonnage changed. We just upped the tonnage big time. Everyone was like, oh, just had to go and spend some time.
Exactly.
Understand what the problem was. And I think that's where, if you look at, got to be careful about the political references, but if you look at leaders that make an influence and that have a good following and have backing from people, it's that leader's got your back, and you know that he cares. and you know that he's actually concerned about how to make the job happen. So, in long story short, I would say it's about playing the ball and not the man. And that's the key portion. Often you find leaders that play the man, they don't play the ball. Climbing into people's characters doesn't help the game. It's about playing the ball and not the man. So let me pause there again and take another question.
We're just having a conversation, and I was just reminded while you were talking about, you're talking about the youth and the diversity of the team on your side. I was very impressed with how you bring diversity in your business and in your marketing, and just not doing it for the sake of numbers, but really leveraging this wonderful diverse people that we have in this country. Why is that so important to you, and where does this come about? How did this come about for you?
So coming back to, I think, Dwight, empowering teams with technology. I'm proudly African. I mean, I know you can't see the Go Booker there, but if you look very close, you can see it. But when I've been fortunate enough to use this platform to travel most of Africa, I think I've seen more of Africa than most, and globally for that matter. And being able to have a reason to share and help other people get exposed to similar kinds of experiences has been hugely rewarding. So that's a personal side of things for me, is seeing people grow and developing talent and identifying a talent. I mean, I'll tell you a story. One of my third in Bongani, I must have worked through about 500 CVs on this Yes Employment program, and I stumbled across it, and for some reason it popped out. So maybe one thing I've got done okay is about identifying talent. Yes. And he was working for like a telecommunications business, trenching fiber, and that was 5 years ago. Bongani is now one of our lead data technologists, and he's traveled the world. He's off to Ghana to deploy a fairly substantial contract. He's running all over East and West Africa now, deploying teams for site survey. And I think to answer your question in a different way, is saying when you give the right kind of people opportunities, it's magic to see what they can do. And Africa has got this huge base of impressive, resilient, and determined talent, because a lot of them haven't had the luxuries that I've had. I was fortunate to go to a great school, a great university, and many of them have got themselves through university, but they don't have the opportunity. Yeah. And this is where I think, and I'm speaking actually next week, so maybe or the week thereafter at the YPC SAME conference. Christo, so I'm going to invite you now. And it's about youth and where do they fit in? And I think there's this missing bridge between leaving varsity and being equipped for this digital world, but also for real world deliverables. And that inflection point is where I think Dwight is going to start playing a much more critical role. I think, to give you insight, we're going to be launching Dwight Labs, which is going to start answering that bridging problem. We want to give people the exposure and the confidence that they can tackle a discussion like this, for example. It's not all about mining. Can they get onto a podcast and deliver a reasonable account of who they are and what they do? Yeah. And that confidence is something that you only get through exposure and opportunity. Yeah. So while we had to safeguard our brand and say, I don't want to put the wrong person in with Dwight, and people saying, who's this guy? Is young, or who's this lady? She's young. Is she the Dwight thing? People have to make mistakes to represent themselves better in the future. So selecting talent is big, but also you have to be big on risk with giving them opportunity and a time to carve their own slice of the pie. And I mean, now we have 35 technologists. We embed 5 learners a year. Not all of them make it. It's a very competitive program, but essentially 2 to 3 a year join the team. And that's kind of our growth on that front. And and the reality is we get CV requests every week, because there are people that want to be involved in our business and also like this platform for their own, and seeing their peers and their friends doing the same thing. So I think we're doing something right there, but I mean, as businesses get bigger, it becomes harder to pull the string. So that's where I'm spending time these days.
The Mining Coach is part of Kumena Consulting. If your company is in need of technical study support, due diligence studies, business improvement projects, or business and senior leadership coaching, why don't you contact us directly by clicking on the show notes and following the links that will connect you to us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your mining. Cheers.